Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my February mid-month wrap-up. I have had a pretty decent reading month so far in February, with it being a shorter month. So from the 1st through the 14th of February, I actually managed to finish 10 books, which I'm actually surprised about. When I tallied it up prior to filming this video and realized that I'd actually read 10, I was surprised. I didn't realize that I'd read that many books in the first half of February, so I'm pretty happy with that. So let's jump straight in and just talk about all of the books that I have managed to read so far in February. So the first book that I managed to complete in the month of February was Shift by Hugh Howey. This is a book that I listened to on audio. It was narrated by Peter Brook. I actually listened to the majority of this book in January, but I didn't finish the audiobook until the 1st. So this is the second book in the trilogy. It is the sequel to Wool. It is actually a prequel though. So Wool is a adult dystopian novel set in a world where the air outside is no longer breathable and humanity now lives in this gigantic silo. It's like 160 levels or something like that, and it's made up of all different types of, you know, things to keep a society going. Like farms and mechanical and IT and all of these types of things, and society now lives in this silo, and that is the setting of the first book. And in the second book, Shift, that I completed, that I'm actually talking about right now, this is the prequel. So we actually go back to about 100 years in the future from the point that we're at today, about thereabouts, and we get the events leading up to the events of Wool. So we get to see how this dystopian world came to be, which I loved, because so often in dystopians, we're just in this dystopian setting. We know that the world has all gone to shit, but we don't know how we got there. And this book gives us exactly that. How did we end up in this situation that we're in now? And I really, really enjoyed that. This book is definitely a lot slower than the first book. It's very slow pace. It's kind of just very, very gradually gives you, you know, the events of what's happened, and we are flashing back and forth between two different time periods, both prequel timelines, but two different timelines, and then those start to tie together and all those types of things. And I personally enjoyed it. I really liked, like I said, getting to see how we ended up here, but it is definitely a much slower book than the previous one, but I did enjoy it, and in the end I gave that 3.5 stars. I then read Lion's Share by Rachel Vincent. This is the first book in a spin-off series to the Shifters series. So the Shifters series was about it's an urban fantasy series about a group of werecats. So they are humans that can transform into these panther, jungle cat type creatures. And this is the spin-off series. I think there's 3 or 4 books, and it's more of a companion series. Each book follows a different set of kind of side characters. And I was very interested in it because I read the little novella at the end of the Shifter series, which is a bridge to this series, and I was very interested basically in the main romance that this was going to be focusing on. And so I read it. It's definitely more romance heavy. While the Shifters series does have a very big romantic element, it is a romance that takes place across the course of a 6-book series, whereas in this, with it being a companion series, we are getting a whole romance in one book, so it is a bit more kind of like full on in terms of the romance. But I did enjoy it, and it really did make me want to continue on with the series, which is a bit going to be interesting to see whether I'm able to, because my library doesn't have the other books and they are quite expensive to purchase, so we'll see. But I did enjoy this book, and in the end I gave that one 3.5 stars as well. Next, I listened to another audiobook, which was The Road to You by Harper Bliss. This one was narrated on audio by Emily Beresford and Gabra Zachman. I will say that I don't really recommend this audiobook. It didn't affect my rating at all, but I just don't think it was a particularly great audiobook in my opinion. So this is a lesbian romance novel, which is set over like a long period of time. We follow 2 characters who meet in college, and there's an event that takes place that causes them to dislike each other, and we then basically follow them over the course of their lives for about 20 years. So it is very like long-term type of story. I will say that it is very much a romance novel in that it doesn't have basically any plot besides just it's character focused. We're just following these two characters and their lives, which sometimes is okay, but it can get a little bit boring when you've got nothing else going on except now this character's doing this and in a romance with this person, and now they've broken up and now they're in a romance with this person. It can get a little bit tedious. And I will say that once the main romance starts to happen, the romance does go from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. It does also get very spicy in the end few chapters, so be aware of that. That doesn't bother me at all, but if that's something you don't like, then don't read this book. So it was okay. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like anything amazing. So in the end, I gave that one 3.5 stars. Next, I read Night Study by Maria V. Schneider. This is the second book in the final trilogy and the 8th book overall in the Chronicles of Ixia. I can't really tell you guys too much about this because this series is so long at this point. All I can really say is that I really enjoyed this. I love all of the characters and all of the different kind of little mysteries and political maneuverings and all of that we've got going on in this series, and particularly in this book. I did really enjoy this, and in the end I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I listened on audio to The Favorite Sister by Jessica Knoll. This one is narrated on audio by Ashley Atkinson, Jenny Barber, and Aja Naomi King. So this is described as being a thriller. It follows a group of women who are on a reality TV show called Goal Diggers. So not gold, but goal, as in like G-O-A-L. And it's supposed to follow these like women in their late 20s, early 30s type of age range who are making it big in the world and achieving their goals, I guess you would say. And so we're following some women on that. We know at the beginning of the story that one of the women on this show has died, and we kind of are going back and trying to find out what's happened. Having said that, the book is very light on. One of my critiques of the book is that it is very light on in terms of a thriller. I wouldn't really even describe this as a thriller. To me, this is a drama with some mystery qualities to the story. In fact, the main mystery that we're trying to solve for the main part of the book isn't even really about what happened to this person who's died. It's about two of the characters on the show who have had this big feud, and us trying to figure out why they've had this fight. They used to be friends, now they're not anymore. What happened? That's the main thing for the most part of the book that we're even trying to figure out. Obviously that comes in and ties into the larger mystery. It does have some very interesting commentary in it. The things that I enjoyed most about it was its commentaries on feminism and reality TV. It has a discussion in there at one point about how being feminist doesn't mean liking all women, because all that does is reduce women down to the only thing that they should be caring about in their lives is about being likable. Feminism doesn't mean that you're going to like every other woman. It's about wanting equality for all of those women and wanting women to be able to achieve everything that women should be able to achieve. Doesn't mean you have to like all women. I really appreciated that. And yes, I recognize that some people feel that this book really isn't feminist because we're in a reality TV show setting. There's a lot of backstabbing, tearing other women down. But to me, I found the book to be very self-aware. I felt that was part of the point. It's about showing that in this reality TV type setting, these shows are purposely set up to make women have these catfights and tear each other down. And the tricks, it even shows some of the tricks that the production plays on the characters on these shows to get them to be angry and fight, that it purposely puts them in these tense situations. There was an example where two characters are supposed to be at the same place and they're both told different times to be there, so that the character who's there first assumes that the other one is late, disrespects their time, you know, and they get really angry, so that by the time they show up, you're already in this really tense situation. Things like that. And so I did, and like, you know, of course the show wants drama, it wants catfights, and so all of the situations that it creates because of that. So yes, it is very backstabby and things like that, but I felt it was done in a self-aware way. At least that's what I thought. Nothing in the book was particularly shocking to me, but I still really enjoyed it for the most part, and in the end I gave that 3.5 stars. I then read Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nyan. This is a book that I received on NetGalley. It is a YA fantasy novel surrounding a main character who, it's in a world, it's an Asian inspired fantasy setting where there are different casts of people. You have humans, human demon hybrids, and then straight demons, and humans are like the lowest level, and the king, the demon king, has every year he gets 8 new paper girls, which are human girls, which are basically picked out to be his concubines for that year. And our main character is picked to be a paper girl this particular year, and it follows that kind of story. It does involve a female-female relationship between 2 of the concubines. I really enjoyed the world. I thought the author did a pretty good job of setting up the world, because it is a bit slow moving, I'll say, but the author did that in order to build up this world and explain all the different casts and how the world worked. I really liked the setting of us being in this world, kind of following these like paper girls and getting to see all of the different interactions and friendships and rivalries that spring up between all of the girls. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the romance. Like I said, it is a bit slow moving, but for the most part I found it really enjoyable, and in the end I gave that one 4 stars. Next, I read Dawn Study by Maria V. Schneider. This is the final book. Finally, I have completed this entire 9-book series. I can't really, obviously, again, tell you guys too much about this, but I did really enjoy the ending. I did think that it lacked a little bit of punch, like it fizzled a little bit. Not too bad, but it did a little bit. I felt like we were building up through the course of this particular trilogy to this big epic type of battle, and then it all kind of fizzled out a little bit. But I am reading this series at this point for the characters. I love all of the characters, and I thought that the author did a pretty good job of wrapping this up in a complete way without feeling the need to make every single major character all live in one little area and be coupled off with all of these people. She didn't feel the need to do that, and I really appreciated that, because in this huge fantasy setting that this is set in this type of world, this type of situation, it just wouldn't have worked. And so I really appreciated that she didn't feel the need to do that. I did really enjoy this final installment, and in the end I gave this one 3.75 stars. I then read Dust by Hugh Howey. This is the 3rd and final book in the trilogy, in the Silo trilogy. So we have the first book, then we have the second book, which was a prequel, and then we have this book, which is more of your traditional sequel to the first book. So we're following the events after the end of the first book. I enjoyed this book a lot. I enjoyed the trilogy as a whole. I do think the first book's my favorite, but I did still really enjoy this book. I thought that the ending is quite open. So if you're not into that, you're probably not going to like this book, but I felt that it was an intentional choice on the part of the author because this is the type of world where none of the characters, it's very secretive type of world where we don't really know what's going on. And so I felt for the ending to then, you get some answers, but it's also left in a very open place with, some things we don't really know. And I felt that that worked for the type of story that this is, in my opinion. I felt like it left on, a nice note, but still with things unanswered. Like I said, I just thought it made sense for this story. I enjoyed it. This author is definitely not afraid to kill off characters throughout the whole series, and I just thought it was really enjoyable. And in the end, I gave that one 3.75 stars. The next book that I completed was The Fifth Witness by Michael Connelly. This was a reread. This is a book technically set in the Mickey Haller universe, but all of Michael Connelly's books basically take place in the same universe. All of the characters basically interconnect at some point with Harry Bosch. And so I'm reading it for its context in the Harry Bosch novels. Taking note of that, Harry Bosch only turns up for like 2 sentences at a party, but that's fine. So I had read this before. Having said that, because this was a 3-star book for me before, still a 3-star book for me now, because it was more middle of the road, I didn't actually really remember that much about this crime. So this is a legal thriller. It's basically Mickey Haller is a defense attorney, and he's defending a murder suspect in a court case. And the main thing I didn't like about this book, which I can't really talk about without spoiling it, is the mystery eventually goes down a particular type of path that some cases go down that I personally don't really enjoy those types of stories. It's really as simple as that. I also don't really love the ending. There's nothing super wrong with it. It's just not my type of ending. So it was just okay. I did still enjoy it. It was still like an enjoyable book, but nothing amazing in this particular one for me. In the end, I gave that 3 stars. And then the final book that I read in the first half of February was Marriage of a Thousand Lies by S.J. Sindhu. This is another book that I listened to on audio and was narrated by Emily Wuzella. So this one is a literary fiction novel. We're following a woman named Lucky who is Sri Lankan American. She is married to another Sri Lankan American man named Chris, short for Krishna, and they are both gay. They're both aware that the other one is gay. They have decided in college to marry each other to basically placate their families and be able to present a straight front to their families while still, with each other's permission, still living out their preferred gay lifestyles without their families really knowing about it. The main kicker to the plot in this one is that Lucky is returning, like moves back in with her mother for a while to help care for her elderly grandmother, and she reconnects with Nisha, who is her childhood best friend, which was also her first love. So that's kind of the main part to the plot. I enjoyed this story for the most part. I did think the marriage between Lucky and Krishna was extremely underdeveloped. That whole relationship, Krishna as a character himself was just underdeveloped. He's barely in the story at all. I thought all of the commentary, and this is not technically anything new, but I did still find it all really interesting about the pressures put on you when you come from a very strict background from a culture where you were raised that you should be respecting your elders and respecting your parents, and you should be doing what's, you know, what they think is best for you, and also from a culture that is not accepting of LGBT people, and all of the pressure that can put on you with you still wanting to live your true life and be happy. And can you ever really be happy because if you choose to live as an LGBT person openly, then your family and your community is not going to accept you. If you choose to pretend to live as a straight person, then you're not really being true to who you are as a person. So it's this, you know, living this kind of split life and dealing with that, which is, you know, a hard, interesting type of topic to read about. I said that I did think some of the relationships were underdeveloped. Again, is kind of an open type of ending, which I think it should be for this type of story, because it really is a character-focused story, and so for it to tie up in a bow wouldn't have made sense. It's more of a slice of life type of story, I guess you could say. I did enjoy it. In the end, I gave that one 3.5 stars. So those are the 10 books that I read in the first half of February. I would love to chat with you guys down below if you've read any of these books, if you've got any thoughts on them, or any books that you guys have been reading and really enjoying or really hating. If you've got any recommendations or anything like that, if you just want to chat, I would love to chat down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.